This week's Nifty Gifties on F5 Live is proudly powered by the Microsoft Store. Whether you're looking for a new laptop, a tablet, an Xbox, games, or a whole lot more, you can get them at the Microsoft Store. And remember that current students, faculty, parents, and active military can save up to 10% off almost anything. And to browse the products to learn more about the discounts, you can go to f5live.tv/Microsoft. All right. This was an interesting week when it comes to video cards for two reasons. The first is that we know that the Ethereum merge has happened and miners don't need video cards the way they used to. But we also got a weird rumor that was then confirmed that EVGA was ending its relationship with Nvidia, which is huge for a couple of reasons. The first is that video cards account for, I think I saw, 80% of the company's revenue. And so to end the relationship with Nvidia, whose cards are the only ones that they've made, seems like a crazy move to me. Now, the company claims that the relationship has been strained for a while. We've heard talk about this throughout the industry for a couple of years, that perhaps that relationship was getting questionable. EVGA says that they wouldn't get final specs on the cards until way too late in a new generation's production cycle, that they weren't even getting the prices for the chips until after the prices for the cards, the MSRPs, were released publicly at announcements. And most interesting of all for me is their relationship with the Founders Edition cards, which EVGA says is essentially NVIDIA competing with their partners by offering the same card for cheaper, which obviously is a challenge. Plus, they've got these floors and ceilings on what they're allowed to sell cards for. So if they really want to get out there and hard compete, they can't necessarily. If they want to make a card that's, insanely through the roof, they can't necessarily because they couldn't put it in a price point above a certain place. It seems like a strained relationship. And for me, it brings up two questions. One, what does the future of EVGA look like? And two, what does the future of NVIDIA look like? And I know you sent me an email earlier today that you were excited to talk about this. So
yeah, well, it popped up on Friday, and the way that EVGA disseminated this major business decision was very odd.
3 bulleted points on a forum post?
Oh, well, maybe they did that, but actually what they did is before that, they had invited like 3 people to visit them, 2 of whom are YouTubers, Gamers Nexus and Jay's 2 Cents, and then John Petty, who is an analyst for John Petty Research. So as far as we know, those are the only 3 people that visited with them, and they gave interviews to these folks beforehand. They gave them some kind of embargo. I guess they gave them of like Friday afternoon to put up this information, but they didn't come out with a press release or anything like that. So when I first saw the video from Gamers Nexus, I thought, well, is this like an unsubstantiated rumor? Can we run with this as fact? But then we saw like other sites coming out with, a couple other places that had also talked to them at the same time. Plus, we reached out to NVIDIA for comment, and NVIDIA said, well, we wish them well. They didn't say, oh, this is the first we've heard of it, or this isn't true. So we kind of got a confirmation there, but it's just really weird. Yeah. And they did it in a very, apparently did it in a very negative way. Like, they weren't just like, hey, we don't want to work with Nvidia anymore. We don't want to do graphics cards anymore. Like, obviously, we're hearing this secondhand, but Gamers Nexus's video, he says that he asked the CEO whether it was a hard decision, and he said, not at all. It's much easier than working with Nvidia or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
they really, they
Went
didn't
hard.
pull a lot of punches about what they were going to do, and it sounds like they're so annoyed that they don't want to stay in the graphics card business at all. Now, it also sounds like EVGA does not want to sell itself, does not plan to go out of business, and yet it's made a decision to cut off the vast majority of its business very kind of unceremoniously, or I guess ceremony. Like, we're not telling anybody that we're doing this, except that we told a few people in interviews, but we didn't come out with some kind of big statement. And oh yeah, and the other thing that he was quoted as saying, the CEO was quoted as saying, was really a bit, I don't know, how can I put it, pointed. He said, "You won't see me sitting on Jensen's lap at the Nvidia press event." Jensen being Jensen Huang, the CEO of Nvidia. So he says he won't sit on his lap. Like, that's a little bit, sharp. You mean so?
Yeah.
Now, I have not given a lot of thought to how third-party graphics card vendors must feel, but this does really raise the question of whether the environment is good for them.
Right.
I mean, now the rumor that's going around is that they told Nvidia they're not going to be carrying the new Nvidia cards as long ago as like last April or something. So
Yep.
it's not. I don't think it's a response to the issues with crypto, although we could see them coming last spring also. But I don't think it's like, it sounds like they were planning this for quite a while to get out of this business. And I mean, that's kind of messed up for the consumer, because EVGA has made some really nice cards, and it often has cards that are at a really good price.
They're the cards that we have in our computers that we built for Strike.
Right. So, but I mean, I see the issue that they're talking about with the company not being, if what they say is true, and we're only hearing their side of it, and not even so directly from them, about them not getting the information well enough in advance from Nvidia, and they're being constrained about what they can do to make their cards competitive, and then they have the company that makes the cards competing with them. I mean, that's all really challenging, right? It's really challenging environment to be in. I mean, it's funny though, because every time you have a company that sort of runs the platform, sort of stretch outside of running the platform, you worry about, like, are they sort of shooting themselves in the foot? But we see this everywhere, right? Like Google started making its own phones quite a while ago, when originally Android was supposed to be something that was made mostly by third parties, right? Microsoft makes its own PCs, even though they also, so they're competing with HP, Lenovo, Dell, Acer, Asus, at the same time that they're providing them with a platform, which I would think is a little dangerous for them to do.
So the Surface is the one that I mentioned specifically in the article, because I remember when it came out, there was fear around exactly this, right? Is the platform going to create problems for the hardware by competing with the hardware? And in the end, it turned out that the Surface became like this inspiration point for the other companies. Like, everybody wanted to figure out how to do something that people would be as excited about, but maybe do it at a lower price point. And there was all kinds of jockeying around it. And I mean, you probably know better than most. The laptop space changed wickedly when the first generation Surface came out. Mobile computing changed in a way I hadn't seen. Companies were trying all kinds of crazy things. Lenovo's got the Yoga, and like all this wild stuff happened because everybody's like, oh, there is a demand for weird. Great. But with video cards, it's not really the same kind of space, right? There's only so much you can do. Can you sell a video card that's pre-water cooled? Sure. But how much demand is there for that? I don't know.
I
But
mean,
it's not quite the same kind of space as the laptop and
yeah,
tablet
I
space.
mean, they get to overclock it very slightly
Sure.
over, but I mean, how much more are people going to pay for another, 50 megahertz or 100 megahertz of graphics card speed? And then, okay, so maybe they get more fans or whatever. But yeah, I can completely see this, where they feel like Nvidia is competing with them in in a way that they don't. It's not good. And then also, if they are giving their own stuff preferential treatment, like, oh yeah, so they're going to make more on their cards because they don't have the overhead of having to pay licensing for their own cards. Like, it's yeah, I understand why partners would be upset. It sounds like a very emotional reaction. On the other hand, how many other companies are really in the same position as EVGA, where the majority, where that's what they're known for doing, is
Right.
making third-party cards? Like, other companies that you think of, like Asus, Gigabyte, and Asai, like, this is
Motherboards.
one of their businesses.
Yeah.
EVGA does have power supplies, and I
Mhm.
think they have a few motherboards.
Maybe.
So, they have a small amount, and they have like some keyboards, but I don't think anybody really cares about that.
Yeah, right.
Uh, so they are really tearing the heart out of their business. Whereas I don't know if Asus stopped making Nvidia cards, if it would tear the heart out of their business.
Right. Especially considering I think companies like Asus tend to do both sides. I don't think they have lived a life of exclusivity the way that EVGA has. EVGA has been a Nvidia partner and a Nvidia partner only for so long that it's weird to see them say, goodbye, Nvidia. But also, for so many people, when it comes to Nvidia cards, EVGA is the brand they go to. Yeah, that it's just what you think. They're nearly synonymous because of how long this partnership has been. I'm curious to see if maybe they've been talking to AMD and we're going to start seeing Radeon
I,
cards out of them. I don't know.
I mean, the way that they phrased it, it really sounds like they are quitting the business. But I mean, that means obviously they claim they're going to find something for their people to do, but it sounds to me like any engineers they have are going to have a hard time having work to do.
Yeah.
So
So the official written thing from EVGA from um, uh, Jacob, the product manager, it says, "Hi all. You may have heard some news regarding the next generation products from EVGA. Please see below for a message on the future products and support." 3 bullets. First one, EVGA will not carry the next generation graphics cards. Now it's important. It does not say next generation NVIDIA. It just says next generation. So that leads into your theory. EVGA will continue to support the existing current generation products. EVGA will continue to provide the current generation products. EVGA is committed to our customers and will continue to offer sales and support of the current lineup. Also, EVGA would like to say thank you to our great community for the many years of support and enthusiasm for EVGA graphics cards. Signed, management. So, I mean, that wording again does sound like they're getting out of cards altogether.
I mean, maybe this announcement inspires AMD to go talk to them.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, maybe um, maybe it inspires Intel to talk to them. Intel is in this business now. I mean, granted, they're not uh, their first set of cards has not been impressive by any stretch of the imagination, but we believe that they are going to be at least mid-range competitive at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not competitive with top-of-the-line stuff like the 4090 or something, but
right,
they may be competitive in the sort of the 3060, 3070, 4060, 40, whatever, in the mid-range card business. So hard to say.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see. Obviously, their name suddenly doesn't make sense. Right. If video cards aren't the core of their business, but lots of companies' names don't necessarily make sense.
I mean, EVGA doesn't make sense because, so I believe, there was, I'm trying to remember back, CGA was color graphics adapter, and that was like 8 colors. Then there was like EGA, which was like, 16 colors or something like that. And then there's VGA, which is, how many colors is VGA? 256? I think the official.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, you have VGA connectors, but the VGA standard, I think, was 256 colors.
Yeah, I think so.
So what's EVGA?
Confusing.
It also doesn't make a lot of sense because,
True.
I mean, look, if you're running a company or you're running a website or you're running a business, trying to think ahead, about whether what you're embracing is going to sound dated soon.
Yeah.
So, Gigabyte, don't you feel a little sorry for Gigabyte? I mean, I don't know how long they've been around, but when they started, it probably sounded like an impenetrably large amount. It's a gigabyte. Holy cow, that's so much. Now, I mean, it could be worse because people still have gigabytes of RAM or whatever.
Sure.
Wait until everybody's rocking like a terabyte of RAM, and gigabyte is nothing. A gigabyte is literally nothing. I mean, it could have been worse. They could have been like kilobyte or something, but that's not very not very good. So now you have that, and you have EVGA. I mean, it's like you watch Johnny Mnemonic, and Johnny Mnemonic's brain could hold like 72 gigabytes of data or something like that. Yeah,
which is just slightly more data than we produce in an hour show.
Right. You have to have his brain taken over to fit what I could now fit on a micro SD card.
Right.
So
let's hope it's not an iPhone and there's a micro SD card slot in there for him.
Yeah. So I mean, I feel bad. I feel bad for them. I feel bad for their employees. This sounds like a very emotional decision. They could have, I don't know, maybe eased out of it a little bit more, I guess. But who knows what's going on behind the scenes?
Right.
Maybe they calculated that they would actually lose money on these cards, and they had to.
That's possible.
They had to decide that they couldn't do it anymore.
It's possible. I suspect that we're going to hear something more than, ethereal rumors coming from YouTube, followed by 3 bullet points on a message board at some point on what the future of the company holds. But for right now, it's almost entirely speculation. Hello, YouTube. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this episode of F5 Live Refreshing Technology. If you did, please subscribe to the channel down below, and of course hit the notification bell, because we know that subscriptions don't mean much on YouTube anymore. If you've got topics that you'd like us to talk about in the future, please comment them down below. And if you'd like to not follow us on YouTube, there's lots of ways that you can follow along with our content by going to PLUGHITZlive.com/subscribe. There you'll see all of our shows and all of the ways that you can watch, listen, and follow along.